Welcome to the Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Coast to coast, pole to pole, all around the world on the internet. Thanks to the marvel of technology, I am coming at you live from my little guest house in Memphis, Tennessee. This is Keith Anthony Blanchard, and you are listening to Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. It is the superhighway to knowledge for that which matters most, and that would be you. You matter most to me. Absolutely. Power up and spread the light, y'all. It's Monday night. If you want to go to centeroflightradio.com, make sure that you click on the, if you look to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a subscription form. Fill that subscription form out. I send out a bi-monthly newsletter. You need to get on this program. I do a lot of research to find spiritual morsels, spiritual jewels that are hiding in the peanut butter jar, so to speak. I'm all about empowering you, the listening audience, with tools, information, wisdom. That will change your life. I promise you, I will not send you junk. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter program. Also, while you're at Center of Light Radio, look at the Do What You Love Forever tab. Click on it. You will see everything I'm about. You'll see all my creations. I am offering the Do What You Love Forever course still for $5. You get my bestseller, The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, Self-Reflection Workbook to encourage your spiritual development, Divine Daily Supplements, 365 Days of Spiritual Nourishment, Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living, the movie made about my life by Blue Cast Productions out of New York. What a fine piece of art this is. And again, I'm always about empowering you. So this movie definitely sheds light on the principles and the techniques and the ideas that you can be implementing in your life so you can begin to beat your feet towards your bliss. Also, you listen to this, I still love saying this, you get the Divine Principle audiobook multimedia music album, and you also finally get the Anchoring Heaven on Earth audio meditation done by yours truly. To call into the show today, dial 888-919-2355. 888-919-2355. Remember now, if you are not at home at any point, and you want to listen to your favorite show, hopefully that's Center of Light Radio, I invite you to go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app. It's absolutely free, and that way you have everything at your fingertips. Chat room, listen, live link, news, podcasts, and much more. There are many ways to connect to Center of Light Radio. That's for sure. Now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. I have a fantastic show today. I'm excited because my guest is going to help me relive some of these memories that happened for me many years ago, in the year 2000 actually, going to India to a holy man's ashram to go see Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. So my guest today, we're going to play some spiritual tennis. Let's just say that. My guest today is Corey Sheikh, and we will be discussing spiritual awakening and our journey of enlightenment. Sheikh, a 25-year-old young spiritual visionary entrepreneur, leading a movement of individuals going through the process of their inner and outer transformation. After co-founding the Ottawa Lifestyle Center at the age of 20, wow, Sheikh faced countless business obstacles, leading to a profound spiritual awakening. Corey's life took a massive turn from the otherwise traditional, quote, young man's path, opening into a world of expansive, esoteric, metaphysical, and spiritual study and introspection, a process in which unfolded at a blistering pace. I know that all too well. Opening a new world of sensory, psychic, and mystical abilities, along with insights of what he calls the infinite vision, in which encompasses a number of initiatives. Corey and the collective community of the Ottawa Lifestyle Center are focused on creating, helping individuals awaken to their full potential. Corey, welcome to Center of Light Radio, my brand new friend.
Thank you, brother. It was a beautiful intro. I'm loving the energy. I'm ready. I'm here. I'm present. Let's make it happen.
In short, we'll get into all the nuts and bolts of it later. But in short, how was your journey to India, my brother?
Oof, words are very weak in the description. It is the presence, is the experience, it's the expansiveness in which ultimately I was given the opportunity to sink into that profoundly shifted, some of my core perspectives on this quest, and really ultimately connected me with the nature of focus and discipline, in which is so vital as one deepens their quest in the plethora of this new age spiritual, material type of industry we've sunken into, with all of these, techniques and programs and workshops and teachers and enlightened gurus that are at every which corner guiding you in various directions, but ultimately many being that of a distraction. And so I feel the number one element that I really connected with within the space of India is coming to the core root of the yogic blueprint and recognizing the means of discipline in which is necessary for one to reach the ultimate goal and quest, in that being the highest samadhi or enlightenment. And so that's the space in which I am presently in at the moment.
Fantastic. Corey, let me ask you, when I was in India, before I went to India, I began to have dream experiences with Satya Sai Baba coming to me in sleep states of consciousness. One night, in short, he came to me and he was standing across the river, and he begins to talk to me telepathically, saying, Keith, come to India. How will I do that? Keith, put all this aside. Just trust that the path is going to unfold. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a lady I've never met. Hi, Keith. My name is Debbie. Hi, Debbie. What can I do for you? Keith, I heard you want to go to India to see a holy man. I said, this is true. She says, Keith, I'm a flight attendant, and I got some companion passes for the year that are about to expire, and I would not like that to happen knowing you want to go to India on a pilgrimage. Can I give you a first-class round trip ticket? Mm-hmm. So this was my path to India. How did this happen for you? Because I know you had some support from people around you.
It's so beautiful you speak of this. I mean, I feel this is the nature of when you really sink into that process of the real divine journey, and ultimately having a guru who can provide the doorway and the path and lay it out for you. In a sense, it brings a deeper space of trust and surrender. But ultimately, it was only 2 weeks before I had to leave that I had decided upon going. I mean, it was brewing for some time. I can relate to the visions and the dreams and the intuitive feel and pull of the quest that was needed. But ultimately, it was only 2 weeks before, in which I put up the crowdfunding on GoFundMe. And almost a week and a half later, I had close to $4,500 raised, ready to go, and provided for exactly what I was needing. And every dime that I got, I started purchasing. I bought the ticket before I was ready. I bought the program before I was ready. I bought everything in its divine timing, in that space of trust and surrender. And the more deeply I sunk into that, the trip presented itself in such an effortless way. Everything about the trip was so effortless, so effortless. And it just really reiterated the nature of the perfect timing in which was needed for myself on that quest.
How long did you stay, brother?
So it was about 3 weeks. It was in three main phases. The first phase was in the main pilgrimage within the Goa area of India, the Goa province, which has a lot of sacred Shiva temples, in which my guru's lineage is connected with, in Babaji and the Shiva lineage and energy. And so much of the Goa experience was a little bit more vacation-y. I mean, we were staying at some resorts, we were going to some temples, but this is the distractions of the resort food and the lying on the beach and things of that nature, at least gave me an opportunity to sink into the energy of India and really start deepening the spiritual practice and the meditations and really get into the energy of the guru. But ultimately, the second and third phase is when I really amped it up a notch and going into 8 to 10 hours of meditation a day at the Earth Peace Temple in the Siddhanath Forest Ashram, which is my main guru's ashram and temple, which ultimately has the biggest Mercury shivling in the center of the temple. And all of these main temples have the Mercury shivling, which acts as the transmission tool for one meditating within the temple. I mean, in modern day, many people just go to the temples to do their puja, and just giving their respects and things of this nature, forgetting about the actual power of meditating within the temple and feeling the energy transmission from the Mercury shivling. But that was an extremely profound experience in doing 5 days in that area of the ashram. And then the final phase was at Oso's meditation resort, which is really like the Disneyland of spirituality nowadays. Has the 5-star resort, the organic food, the club nights, the gigantic 5,000 person pyramid temple. I mean, it's quite done up, and it really does Osho well in the sense of, his philosophy between the balance between material and spiritual. But ultimately, like I had mentioned, sinking into the nature of less distractions and focus on the practice and what matters most when you're really setting in that space of intention, especially in a place like India. So really powerful experience.
So did you go alone?
I went alone, yes. Well, there was perfect timing in that. I mean, much of my journey in this past while has been surrounded by this community we're building up here in Canada, and in this conscious community, and this community that's supportive of the journey of awakening and the process of expansion. And so it was definitely a time in which I needed to step into that solidarity, and the loneliness of the spiritual quest needed to root itself in, so I could really feel what that feels like, even more so than the initial parts of this quest. And so it was definitely much needed.
For myself, I had initially planned the journey with my spiritual mentor, and things kept falling away. And when I got to the ashram, I realized it was purposeful that I went alone. So I was not distracted by anything else but to focus on the reason I was there was for my own expansion. When I got to India, I had no choice but to let go of everything I thought shouldn't happen, how things should be. And in so doing, I was able to peel myself open and begin to absorb Mother India that I would not if I had some people come along. While you were there, Corey, tell me about the levels of expanded awareness that you were able to achieve, because when I was there, when I got back, let's say, I felt informationally pregnant.
Powerful.
I felt very bloated.
Powerful.
I felt very bloated. And that bloating lingered with me for quite a long time, because I knew the information that I took in was going to be with me a while. And so as I go about my linear life, that these things would trickle into my consciousness so I can begin to focus on things that would come through at any given point. Would that be true for you as well?
Most definitely. I mean, the past 5 years for myself personally has been an experience of, expanded nature, especially when it comes to the nature of visions and psychic experiences and prophetic, experiences in the sense of, many of the projects we're working up here, my individual quests in the sense of what I must be doing in my life to fulfill the highest destiny, and on a collective scale, what is the potential for an awakened humanity? What is the potential for all of us in the sense of what life could be like if we are all to fully step into this, full scale? And so much of the journey in going to India was to root myself more deeply into these visions on a practical level, but also forgetting about the visions and sinking into the real experience of what we would call nirvikalpa samadhi, which is the highest level of enlightenment in the yogic text, that being the cosmic consciousness, the unlimited, the unbegotten, the infinite experience in which one can inhabit within their vessel, within their body. And so on a practical level, removing themselves from the pleasures of the digestive system or the sexual organs or the lower, energetic elements of the solar plexus, and moving up into the brainal cavity and recognizing that the orgasmic experience in which one can have within the brainal cavity is what's giving them those reference experiences of recognizing what infinite consciousness, what cosmic consciousness, what the connection back to source practically feels like within the body. And so much of the practice of Kriya Yoga is the scientific process of reaching this highest state of enlightenment and bringing these feelings within you, these expanded feelings, these moments of insight, these moments of bliss, in a perpetual means, a means in which is always present. It's a continuous process of orgasm within the body, within the brain, within the physical manifestation of the body, let alone the various levels of the energetic. And so firstly, being in the presence of a guru, this is just a natural flow where this is perpetually being transmitted from the guru to you, and you're constantly being given these reference points, whether or not you're even meditating. It's just a natural process of you being in the presence that will be granted this opportunity. And then, of course, as you go deeper in your process of the Kriya technique or the whatever technique you've been given, you are going to unload this process at a blistering rate for you. And so this is much of what this was for me. I had tasted the fruit of this before, whether that was from previous techniques or psychedelic experiences or these types of things. But now bringing it in a much more consistent and perpetual basis that really was rooting me into what the ultimate goal and quest was. If this is something that in which I can experience all of the time or most of the time, well, then everything else that I have as a priority in my life needs to be reconfigured, because this is the ultimate quest. This is what is needed for one to live the ultimate purpose, their ultimate destiny, their highest potential, whatever you want to call it. And so most definitely, I mean, it was a constant process of tapping into this and recognizing, once again, as I come back into the real world, quote unquote, it cannot be forgotten and it needs to be brought into the highest priority.
888-919-2355, 888-919-2355 to call into Center of Light Radio to speak to myself or my guest today, Mr. Corey Sheikh. Corey, if you was to pick a number, how many people would you say were on the ashram generally while you were there?
This ashram, actually, it was quite quiet while I was there, and it was beautiful. I mean, it went from literally just being a group of 5 people in the complete ashram to upwards around 15 by the time I left, because they were preparing for a new program. But it was beautiful to be in a space of solitude, so that I like you're saying, is you recognize there's no distractions, there's nothing to bring you away from the ultimate focus, and it just provided for such a beautiful, serene environment.
The reason I asked you about the number of people is because when I was in Sai Baba's ashram, there's 35,000 plus people there a day, and that's a low number. While I was there, and you have a temple which is made to resonate, and this mass of people goes into singing bhajans. Something really, really cosmic begins to happen. The vibration is so intense. The vibration is so high. When I went into this experience called Suprabhartam, which is the temple in the center of the temple, and 35,000 people begins to chant Om 21 times as they ring this solid gold bell. While I was sitting in the Suprabhartam room, Corey, my body began to melt off of my essence. And I'm sitting there in my essence, having the most amazing ecstasy, bliss-filled experience. While you were there, Corey, we know that the miracle was you being there and having the blessed divine opportunity to connect consciously with more of who you really are. How did the outside speak to you in the form of synchronicity? While I was on Sai Baba's ashram, everywhere I would turn, the alignments that were in queue were just absolutely amazing, from the smallest to the most gross possible experiences. I'd have a dialogue with you if I met you in the courtyard, and we talked about something very, very specific. You turn around or you turn the corner, and you have this full-blown manifestation of it to validate you and the level of expansiveness that you were having on the ashram. How was this for you?
Most definitely, I fully resonate with that. Everything in the sense of its synchronistic, intuitive, deja vu-esque type of experience was there and present. And much of this carried over into the dream time as well in the evening, where mostly everything was just crossing over of realities, where you're recognizing that everything is coalescing and directing itself and pinpointing itself into full alignment. So I would have experiences in the nature of having a dream of having frogs on the roof of my house, and then opening my eyes, going to the washroom, and a frog being in a toilet, and then going back to bed and having the alarm go off, where I wake up in another dream in a bed when I realize this is not the right place, close my eyes, open the eyes again, open my phone, and the alarm is going off. I'm in the reality I should be, and seeing that these constant perpetual experiences were happening over and over. And this is happening in the dream time, in the temple, outside the temple, and in the whole trip overall creating this effortless flow of experience that's only requiring now your observance. Just be in that space of silent observance and see the synchronicities, in which are always there ultimately. And I feel that's a key core component as I returned back to North America, was the patterns and the mind habits in which pervaded, you know, much of my life from running a business full time and having other responsibilities. These things pull us away from being able to clearly see that these synchronicities are always existing and always there. And that is ultimately the ultimate quest, is how can we bring this ashram temple experience, this lifestyle, this vibrational viewpoint or perspective, and that now into each and every component of our lives, to see that this experience is perpetual. It's wherever we see, it's wherever we are perceiving, it's wherever we are, that synchronistic experience or that synchronistic flow can be there as well. And so I fully resonate with what you're saying. It's a beautiful experience when you really experience it firsthand.
People have often said, you know, you don't need to go to an ashram to experience the divine. And I totally get that, and I'm sure you do as well. However, when you have a portal, a window of opportunity open up for you from your guru, you know, when I went to India, I used the ashram, my experience in India, or Sai Baba as, quote, the excuse to open up. And for me, it was very purposeful, one at that. When you were there, how did you find your level of your ability to surrender? Did you find it more effortless while you were there versus being in North America?
Most definitely. And I feel it's kind of twofold, in the sense of, really, you know, of course, like you're saying, many people say in this new age culture, the spiritual culture, the awakening culture, is that anywhere can be your temple, your home can be your temple, your regular community can be your temple, or ashram, or whatever you want to really denounce to it. This can be your temple. But of course, it's more important to look at the patterns and the cycles of habit in which have been instilled within the everyday environment many of us are already living in. And so not only when we travel to a new place are we reconfiguring a new pattern, well, now if we are traveling to not only a new place, but a place in which has already been sacredly consecrated for so many years to house the highest frequencies, the highest levels of vibrational experience, ultimately you're kind of getting the double whammy in a sense. You're coming into a new space that already gives you the opportunity to repattern new habits and new mindsets and new ways of being and living, but now in a space in which is already ready to receive you in this new intention of you being disciplined in your spiritual practice. So that is what made it, once again, so effortless, the whole trip, the whole experience, to constantly be in that space of surrender, because the vibrational environment is just ready to receive one who is willing to give that type of intention. And so as I returned back into North America, firstly, the polarity between India and North America was like walking into the Truman Show, where I was walking and I was like, I'm driving down the streets and looking at the straight lines, everyone walking straight. I'm seeing people actually stop at red lights, and I'm seeing the nature of the city just being this serene dullness, in a sense, lack of spontaneity and creativity, and it was just very interesting to see that. And then going deeper within that, the patterns of my previous self before I left resurfacing the moment in which I got back, the moment in which I stepped back in my house, the moment in which I came back into my everyday business routine. And so it was really giving me a full view on that in which ultimately needed to be reconfigured and housed in a new perspective, in a new way, so that the experience in which I had within the ashram can be manifested within my everyday experience and community. So that was something that was really profound.
When did you get back?
I just got back about 4 days ago now. So I'm reconfiguring some things. So I'm still feeling the waves of blissful energy. It's a beautiful thing.
And it's going to linger for a while, my brother. Enjoy the ride. Yeah, when I got back, it was just there constantly, reminder. And as soon as I left, I started missing the ashram. I'm missing India. India is such a beautiful, simple place, but also it's like the world in microcosm. You were mentioning the traffic. I got my fingers buried in the seat, holding on for quote dear life, and the driver says, "Oh, Saidam, don't worry, be happy." And you see all these cars coming in your direction on the road, and intuitively, believe it or not, they know how to maneuver the car at the last minute, so there's never a crash. It's quite an experience to be had.
I totally agree. I found that one of the even deeper spiritual experiences was noticing these everyday taxi drivers or rickshaw drivers who have the most superhuman ability to deal with the onslaught of the traffic. It was just it was such an interesting thing to observe.
Fantastic. Corey, when you got there, it was for me, when I got there, it was about 1:30 in the afternoon, and Sai Baba usually makes his appearance about 2:15. So I go to the orientation office, and he said, "Saidam, have you ever seen Sai Baba before?" I said, "No." And he said, "Put your bags down here and take off run and take a right here, take a left here. You'll see Kuwant Hall." And of course, because I didn't get there till the time I did, which was late because I had just gotten on the ashram, I was way in the back of the line, not the line, back of the seating area to experience. But while I was there, I'm overwhelmed with the sense of, wow, I'm actually here. I literally now, metaphorically, but also literally, I had a dream about Sai Baba, but also had a dream that became actualized. And I actually pinched myself. And when Sai Baba walked out of that little gate on the right-hand side, and I saw this 5'1" little man of towering divinity, I didn't know I didn't know how to process that at the moment. So I wasn't about to try. I didn't want to judge it. I just wanted to sit with it and let it be. What were your feelings when you got to the ashram and the reality set in with you that I'm here?
Well, I feel that, like I had mentioned, the first part was kind of my honeymoon phase, if you will, to really integrate deeply into the Indian flow. And, that's ultimately where I spent the most time with my guru in a very personal means, and touching on that element, just for a minute, in the sense of recognizing the real power behind a guru, and being able to see beyond the flesh, if you will, and in recognizing that a guru is much more than just a human. It's much more than just a man. It's much more than what we could ever conceive with our mind. And that was a continual process of recognizing the depth of what a guru really means while I was there, in seeing just so much more beyond the physical flesh and the physical nature of it. Because as we get limited in that, that's of course where we don't fully understand and grasp the magnitude of having a real guru who's in front of you in your presence in human form, and being at your will, being in your presence, being at your call for whatever it is that you're needing. And so that is a profound topic in which I felt was the real thing that was hitting me in that first phase. Getting to the ashram, ultimately the Earth Peace Temple, very very small temple, but one of, if not the most powerful in the world, due to the fact that it has the biggest Mercury shivling. And so just stepping into the place, you're feeling the profound transmission that comes from having a tool of that means in front of you and in your presence, and then ultimately recognizing that presence is infused with the Guru's energy and will always be there. And so the moment you step in is just like a wave of bliss, and then the meditations just take it to infinity and beyond.
Center of Light Radio, Monday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat room. It's good to see you all here. I appreciate you more than you can possibly imagine. Also, for those who have been asking about the expansion of Center of Light Radio into a 2-hour show, my producer, Mr. Joe, and myself have been chatting about that. So heads up about that. Stay tuned. We're going to see if we can make this happen sometime in the very near future. If you want to call into the show to speak to myself or my guest today, Mr. Corey Sheikh, someone who I am envious of, to use a word right now, because his experience from India is so fresh. Make sure you dial 888-919-2355. Corey, while you were there in India, what was the name of, I know that you mentioned Osho. What was the name of the other spiritual avatar that you had mentioned?
So the guru that I've been initiated by, his name is Yogiraj Siddhanath Gurunath. And so the name behind that and the meaning behind that, and I feel many individuals are always questioning, well, what do these names mean? Why is this? Why are so many gurus named similar things, or named long names, or have 3 names? And so ultimately, Yogiraj Siddhanath Gurunath means, Yogiraj is the breakdown of yogi, being the term for the yogi, the searcher of truth. Raj meaning royal, so royal yogi. Siddhanath, Siddhi, means the superpowers that are in the Yoga Sutras, the 12 abilities in which are unlocked when one reaches the states of samadhi. So Siddhi, or Siddha, being that in which has achieved these abilities. And then Nath, representing the word Lord. So there is only a certain lineage of Nath yogis, which Gurunath is, and these are the Himalayan yogis, in which are the Lord. They are the ascended masters. They are those coming from as the protectors of the planet. So we have the Siddhi Nath, or the superhuman Lord yogi, and then the last person, which is Guru, which is of course the bringer, the shower of the way, and then Nath again. And so that's ultimately what the name means: Yogiraj Siddhanath Gurunath.
Corey, we're at the bottom of the hour. If you would you please give out your contact information so our listening audience can find you and more about the work that you're doing and the phenomenal path that lays before you, sir?
Most definitely. So the best place definitely is on Facebook. Most of my stuff I'm posting there. Facebook.com/infinite with an E, Sheikh, SHEIKH. And then my personal blog website, which I've started from this pilgrimage, was infinitesheikh.com. There'll be many more blog posts and videos that are going up there, but most of my videos are on Facebook at the moment. And then the last place is much of the work we're doing up here in Canada with our Lifestyle Center and some of other main components, which is www.ayp.life. Or awakenyourpotential.life. Those are the places you can reach me at.
Fantastic. Corey, I want to ask you a question, and by no means do I want this to appear superficial. I know sometimes spirituality, people tend to lean very hard on the bells and whistles and all the magical stuff. And for me, it does have a purpose. It helps people to grasp what lies as a potential for them when we get down and hunker down and do the spiritual work, that life can change in many different ways. What are, if you would share, without being too personal, some of the nuts and bolts, some of the bells and whistles that did happen for you, some of the levels of consciousness that you were able to reach, so it might inspire some of these people in the listening audience to go, oh my God, do you mean I can actually have that too? Well, yeah, you can. And so is there anything regarding that you would like to share with the listening audience so that might give them some motivation to look within with a little more fervor?
Most definitely. And that's an important point, because I feel that's the reference point in which many are needing to continue along the path, or even begin the path, or deepen the path, as you're saying, in a more consistent manner, because we can all get the motivation to start meditating on the new 21-day challenge, but ultimately it's the 6, 7, 12 months, 14-month runs of meditation in which really are giving us the highest bang for our buck, if we will, in the sense of its consistency and the unfoldment of synchronicity and destiny. And so the process of recognizing that many of these spiritual powers or extrasensory perceptions are available to every single individual on the planet. Every single individual who has a human body, so that's everybody, of course, has the ability to access these varying levels and degrees of superpowers, if you will, or just really just extrasensory perceptions that are beyond the typical 5 senses in which we've come to know. And so much of mine was really connected with the elements of psychic ability in the sense of prophetic visions, seeing insights, connecting with knowledge, connecting with the Akashic records, which is the supraconscious of the existence. So tapping into knowledge in which I have not read, I have not seen, I have not looked at before, but ultimately I just know and I feel and I can speak of and I can transmit. And so much of my experience was the download of knowledge and insight and wisdom and vision. And from there, many new things come with that. The ability for energetic healing of self, of others, the experience of unbelievable, unimaginable flows of bliss within the experience, as I mentioned, in the brainal cavity, because that's much of where we can relate this to. When the brain is activated, when we've really balanced the left and right hemispheres, when the pituitary and the pineal are secreting the sacred nectar, the golden fluid, the holy grail fluids, if you will, that is what is bringing us into these ecstatic experiences of bliss. And so much of that in the beginning was due to the psychedelic experiences in which I had in various ceremonies and various uses of those, and then sinking into many of the techniques of the pranayama, the kriya techniques, the breathing, and these types of things in which activate it, in due time through your effort and discipline. And so this is a plethora of different things in which had come through with me, but they are definitely the most profound and the things in which I had the most fun with, if you will, that really kept me motivated to continue down the path of the enlightened quest.
When I was in India on the ashram, I had an experience with Sai Baba that was just truly expansive. When I was in the ashram, I never had a dream about Sai Baba. When I was in Memphis, it wouldn't stop. And ironically so, one day in particular, I went out of the ashram, which you're not supposed to do, but I did anyway. I wanted to buy some gifts. I wanted to bring in some parts of India home with me. And I bought a japamala early one morning, and I went to the ashram, and Sai Baba comes in, and he passes literally a matter of 2-3 feet from me, blessing this guy, blessing this guy, blessing this guy. I held up my japamala, and he looks at me kind of puzzled. I was puzzled the way he looked at me, and he skips right over me, continues. I'm going, well, that's something. Why would he do such a thing? Well, for the afternoon darshan, I have some time to spare, so I'll go outside the ashram. So I walk to one of the stores, and the attendant says, Saddam, what do you need? I said, I don't know. What is it I do need? He goes, how about this perfect japamala to buy for your prayers to Sai Baba? I said, sure, even though I bought one that morning. That being said, I decided I'm going to go take a nap before my experience for the afternoon darshan. And lo and behold, as I fall asleep, I go into an amazing state of consciousness, more conscious than I am right now in this microphone. And Sai Baba begins to tell me this prophetic thing about the life of Yeshua, the life of Jesus. And I get out of the dream experience, and because I've had so many experiences surrounding the return or whatever of the Christed energy, I got really mad. I got really pissed off. And I began to curse Sai Baba, knowing that it was purposeful for me to run this anger to run its course. And after I felt heard by saying the prayer over and over for hours in the beating hot sun, sitting on the concrete, waiting to go into Kuwant Hall, the prayer I said was, is it valid? Is it valid? Is my experience that I had with you and my own understanding of it the truth of what I know to be? Is it valid? All this being said, I got into the temple and I was validated. Sai Baba was facing the other way. I raised up the bead and I asked, is it valid? He stopped literally in mid-motion, stops what he's doing, turns around and walks straight to me and blessed this bead. When he blessed this bead, he looks me in my eyes and upon doing so. And as I'm looking at him, I can see myself as the small personality self looking up at Sai Baba. But also there began to be a feedback loop. I begin to see myself through his eyes looking at the personality self. And this feedback loop began to happen, so much so I became so expansive, I saw the birth of the universe. And I became a sobbing mess of bliss. I decided I was going to leave the temple, not because of what people would think about me by losing composure. I didn't want my losing composure to be a distraction to everybody else because I was an expansive, sobbing mess of bliss. It's just amazing the infinite waves of energy that begins to happen when you fall into such a space. So I know that was true for you, probably for your whole journey.
Most definitely. Completely relate with that. So beautiful.
So Corey, while you were there, was there a theme, though you might have, when I went to India, I did have, quote, some expectations, but I kept them bridled. Okay, this is what I would like to happen. I acknowledged that, and I gave myself that gift. Then I put that in a folder and tucked it away. And then I released all of my expectations. And I'm sure you probably had the same approach. You had some things that you would like to have happen, but of course you went there surrendering all that nonsense to what was going to happen. What did you see as synchronicity, as patterns of what was playing out as your gift? What was being unfolded for you resoundingly, ongoingly, while you were on the ashrams in India?
Well, I feel the nature of surrender and discipline, or surrender and trust, rather, is definitely the core focus of what it was for myself, and I feel many in that space. But that surrender and trust is what provides the foundation for many of the higher other experiences in which come forth, because it's in that space of surrender and trust in which you've now silenced the mind, and you brought your awareness more into that space of observance, and you really can see these synchronicities in which are arising. You can see the subtle messages in which are coming for you. You can see these things very clearly. And so that was the initial kind of foundation component in which provided for me to really recognize the nature of discipline within distraction. And that I found was really the heightened sphere of everything, in knowing that the highest goal is that of nirvikapa samadhi. It is the highest quest. There is no other quest but that quest. So we can get into all the other desires in which we have along the path, even getting into all these extrasensory perceptions and the superhuman powers in which we can unlock, but those are still secondary to the highest goal and the highest quest. And so with that being said, if you are given a technique in which, with scientific accuracy, with scientific ability to project the time frame in which is needed for your daily meditation, for the amount of years you're going to need to spend in that meditation to reach these heightened spaces, well, that is what you need to be focused on. And so, much of the transition from the, kind of small, low-budgeted ashram going to the Disneyland of spirituality, I mean, all the distractions of everything start to arise in a way different way than normal. These spiritual distraction. They're all the profoundly beautiful different forms of chakra breathing and movement meditation and qigong and yoga and organic food and all of the things in which seem like they're going to get you to the goal. But ultimately, deep down, you know that it is the main techniques in which you've been given by your guru, by the blueprint of Kriya Yoga, which many of these gurus are teaching. That being the ultimate focus of the journey and quest. And at least for myself, that's where, I mean, by day 1.5 at the Disneyland, I was back in my shitty apartment still doing the techniques in which I had been given at the ashram, and recognizing that all the fun aside, I must be fully disciplined and rooted in what is necessary for me at the present time. And so that was for sure the main theme and pattern in which I was existing in within that space.
When I got back from the ashram, a lot of my friends knew that I was into Sai Baba, and in an occasion we talked about his ability to for his leelas, his divine sport of play, that he can manifest, he can materialize. And that's all really cool. And this is really what got me, as we mentioned a little earlier, about some of these things can be motivating to bring you into your own spiritual enlightenment. Because I realized when I first started many years ago that, oh my God, you mean I can have all this stuff? And I realized I have to get busy to clean up my life. But yes, Keith, you can have all these things. So when I got back from India, some of my friends were saying, did you get to see Sai Baba materialize these objects? Yes, I did. Statues, ash. I saw him change the weather right in front of my face. All these things. And these are all the bells and whistle kind of miracles I saw. But the real, absolute miracle I was able to experience while I was in India among 35,000 people, government officials, clergy from every walk of life, Hindus, Sikhs, Tibetan monks, housewives, every person from every color, from every religious garb, from every walk of life in religious fashion, all coming there for one purpose, and that purpose was to unify and use their collective energy, which launched everyone through the ceiling of doubt, through the ceiling of thought, into this magical, mystical, cosmic realm of absolute love. That was the miracle for me.
Powerful. Most definitely. Most definitely. Needs to be so grounded and rooted in the space of unconditional love always. That is the space in which ultimately we're all searching for regardless. It is the bliss within the body in which we're looking to experience perpetually. And so the process of us getting somewhat distracted by many of the bells and whistles in which you're speaking of is just bringing us away from the inner experience of expansive bliss and love in which we're all really looking for. And that I feel from most, if not all, the gurus which they're really bringing is they'll show in humbleness the specific abilities in which they have, but they'll never overdo it for you to get distracted anyway. And that is a very powerful thing.
Corey, what are your thoughts about someone who might hear the show and questions or entertains the idea that they would love to go to India to seek out a guru? What are your thoughts about that process that we spoke about earlier? Should one go to India? Or, I mean, of course, we know that we can do this one, but what are your thoughts about making such a pilgrimage overseas to use that as an excuse towards enlightenment?
I feel the intuition is always that in which knows, and if one is at any moment feeling the inclination that they need to be going to a certain place, whether it's Hawaii or Costa Rica, these hot spots in which you're existing, they have to go. There's no other decision, because that space of intuition will always be speaking. And it's not even really that they have to go, it's that they will go. And whether it's going to be at this time or another, it's natural that the process will unfold for them to come back into the roots, the ancient roots, in which will reconnect them with themselves. The process of coming back into yourself is getting away from all of the thing which is illusionary. And when we go into the space of the ancient connections, the ancient blueprints, these are the things in which are as little illusionary as possible as you can make it on this physical plane, as much as everything is still an illusion. But that process of connecting back with that ancient root is just so invaluable. There's nothing that compares to it.
That was a very good answer, sir. I applaud that answer. It wasn't your typical spiritual answer that people would give, because you didn't give it one way or the other. I like the absolution of it. It's not a matter of whether you decide you go. You will go. If it's for you to go, you will go. It's not a matter of whether you should or shouldn't. You can have a retreat in your home with 15 of your closest friends or someone's ranch. If it's designed for you to go and it's meant for you to go, there's no way out of it. You are going to go, because all the cards are going to line up to where I had. When I went to India alone, not only was there no distraction, everything was aligning up so perfectly, because I went with absolute trust. And when I was trying to find out which way do I go from the airport, people were always out of nowhere stepping up and saying, Saddam, I know where you're going. You go to take a right over here, take a left over here, and this kind of thing. And don't listen to that person over there. Listen to me. And everything was just so perfect. It was destined. That's something I had to do. I have a question for you. What have you taken overall now? What have you taken from your experience that will be with you for the rest of your life?
I feel the technique of Kriya Yoga is beyond a technique. It's beyond anything I've ever really focused on the spiritual quest. And we all need tools. We all need tools along this journey. We can build a house without a hammer, but boy, our hands are going to be bloody. And so the process of recognizing that the highest tools, the tools of the most profound and universal nature, are those in which we must befriend like never before. And so that process of recognizing that The highest goal is there. It is attainable. It is available for any individual who's willing to sacrifice their material lifestyle, if you will, and not by means of just throwing everything away, but recognizing that the time that's going to be necessary in meditation, in your spiritual practice, in your focus and discipline, using the specific techniques in which have been given to you, will be requiring sacrifice, require you to change your focus and recognize that in which is distracting and that in which is ultimately for you to be focused on. And so for me, ultimately, is knowing that the process of meditation, basic forms of pranayama, breathwork, and kriya yoga is what will bring me more deeply into the space of that enlightened sphere, and everything else from that, as long as I'm in that space of surrender and trust, will be aligned for me in whatever means that I'm needing. And so ultimately, much of my journey in the initial phases of using other techniques of lesser nature, techniques that may not have the same potency and have all the bells and whistles, all the flash, all of the fun, but are not providing the foundation. Like, sometimes many of the psychedelic things can move us in that direction. Many of the other forms of energy work and things of this nature all have their benefits, but still can be distracting at times. And so many times as I got sucked into them in an imbalanced nature, they brought me into the visions and all of the what could be and all of what is going to happen in the future, but forgetting about what really is needed.
Again, y'all, I really appreciate you being here at Center of Light Radio. Next week, my guest is going to be Mr. Michael Mullen, and we're going to be speaking about the War of Angels. The War of Angels. This guy had a download, was experiencing very high level conscious extraterrestrial being for quite some time. Should be a very interesting show. I do appreciate it if you share that information with those who would like to be a part of Center of Light Radio. And I also want to say thanks again to Mr. Corey Sheikh for being here today on Center of Light Radio. Again, we're going to really consider expanding Center of Light Radio for a 2-hour program. So hang on tight with that. I don't think Corey's going to be able to get back on the air with us. We think that something technical happened, like his phone died. But I do want to say thank you very much to Mr. Corey Sheikh for being on Center of Light Radio. Also, July 11th, check this out, July 11th, Amit Goswami is going to be here in Center of Light Radio. If you've seen What the Bleep Do You Know, he's the theoretical physicist that was on that show. He's going to be here July 11th. We're pretty much at the top of the hour. So again, I want to say thank you to Corey Sheikh, how much I really appreciate you. Everyone, Keith Anthony Blanchard here, your host of Center of Light Radio. Again, thank you everyone in the chat room. I really appreciate your presence here. Remember, late at night when you're laying down and you're about to go to sleep, you have nothing else to do. You might as well start that breathing process, as Corey mentioned so finely in this show. Breathing, breathe, breathe, breathe. If God is life, if God is the breath of life, when you breathe, you are taking in spirit. Breathe that spirit in so you can expand at the deeper levels of bliss. Expand beyond the confines or the boundaries of your human mind. Punch yourself through the ceiling of thought, and you will hear a profound, deafening silence. Profound silence. And in that silence, you will hear more than you've ever had in your entire life. And that is the path, is meditation. That is the foundation. That is the basics of spirituality. And when you have that brick solidly laid in your house, your consciousness, your home of who you really are, what you can erect is just truly, truly amazing. It's cosmic. It's infinite. Every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard. Always remember, power up and spread the light and ease into bliss. We will see you next week. Peace, love, and love. Good evening.